So, before we go on, I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe, and please stay tuned. We have exclusive interviews, detailed symposiums of individual works, and things like this, ongoing series with special topics. Um, I want to make an executive decision real quick and do mine before Keith and let Keith wrap us up. Is that okay with you?
Okay,
Okay. Because
that'll work.
I think this will be short, hopefully. It's not much to talk about, but anyway, I did have some notes. I better be reminded, but I may not need them. It's called STEAMBATH, and it was broadcast uh, in May of 1973 on
Wow.
PBS. And it's really weird because, of course, I didn't see it at the time, but that's probably because it only showed on 24 PBS affiliates in the entire nation. And the reason for that is because it was extremely adult, and it was based on a play. It was by Bruce J. Friedman, and the play did, pretty well. Um, Sorry for the flippy sounds. Um, and it's basically the premise is pretty simple. So everybody wakes up, they're in a steam bath. That's it. So, but what they find out is that the janitor, played by Jose Perez, who went on to do some cool roles in Short Eyes and I forgot the other cool one he was in, but Short Eyes especially. Jose Perez is this janitor, and then they find out he's God. And so most of the rest of the show, after in the beginning, it's like a few odd characters as a gay couple. That stuff, the stuff they're doing, that would never have been on network in '73. And I guess a lot of PBS didn't want it either. It was campy, but I don't think it was discriminatory. That's just my opinion. Because I've known gay men who act like that. Maybe that's the problem. But it wasn't showing you much beyond the previous stereotypes, but it was giving them a lot of screen time, and it was getting kind of not graphic sex talk, but not far from it. Tons of innuendos and a lot of slang and and cursing. Um, and There was also like these older
You got
guys.
you got more of that on old PBS stuff in the '70s.
Yeah, in the '70s was the first
A little
time I
more
saw a nude
free.
woman in a TV show. And this actually does have nudity. Actually, one of the main characters is called Meredith, and she's played by Valerie
Mhm.
Perrine, who, of course, at that time was a huge sex symbol because she had been in
Mhm.
Lenny with Dustin Hoffman. And then
And Slaughterhouse-Five too.
yeah, I
Slaughterhouse
don't know which
Five.
one came first of these three. Then, of course, a few years later, she did Superman the movie, and then it's
Right,
like
yeah.
another generation of geeks fell in love with her. But I remember she was in Playboy. My mom bought the issue. I mean, I
Oh
thought she
yeah.
was so hot back then. And also, I think Lenny is a fucking masterpiece. I don't, if it's
Yeah.
not on Blu-ray, it's a crime to humanity.
Yeah, that probably got needs to be covered one day on Deep Images.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
So Valerie Perrine is that. So the main character is Tandy, played by Bill Bixby. So real quick, the stage play was directed by Anthony Psycho Perkins, and he also, which I don't see
Mhm.
this much in plays, he cast himself as the lead Tandy. Now I don't know how a guy can do all that on stage at once. I can barely direct all this, at the same
Well,
time.
I mean, once he's got it directed, though, then he just kind of, after once it's all been done, he's just going to be on stage
He's got
as
to
the play.
depend on the
You
actors
know,
completely.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
skill that is not in the cinema, and
no,
you know,
that's that's
it's staggering to me,
yeah,
the
yeah.
memory. And so he played the main character, and in that one, the God character was played also by a Hispanic man, Hector Elizondo. Later became a kind of a TV star, cult actor, but he won the
Oh
Obie
yeah.
Award for it for best
So
performance.
did Perkins direct it for PBS?
No, this was on stage.
I know. Did he also direct it for PBS or?
No, a guy named Brinkenhoff directed for TV.
Okay.
But it's really interesting because once I learned that, I saw this a couple of years ago. I have a burnt copy I got because I was just curious what it was like, and it had some stars in it I like, and a weird premise. So I decided this would be a really cool artifact to talk about. So I watched it on the Internet Archive the other day, and it's hilarious, and it's really 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 bawdy for its time. It's more I mean, it's only like 25. Well, no, what am I saying? It's a movie. It's not a TV. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's like an hour and a half. It is an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And for some people, it might drag. It's really talky, as they say nowadays, as a derisive term. But, in this case, I just call it very literate and very entertaining repartee. Um, and I now that I found out Perkins had played the part, I can kind of hear the cadence of Perkins saying those lines, and Bixby in a way. I don't think he's imitating Perkins because Bixby has a great delivery himself. That's just so amazing to me, anyway. I always have thought that. This is kind of one of his masterworks because it's just, and he had to know so well. I'm sure they do have cuts in it, but they're rare. They have very long takes. I don't know how Bill Bixby went on for like he did and knew all that stuff and still and his character's very frantic, so he's always changing moods and he's using all these big words and he's talking all these weird scenarios because basically he's trying to con God into not sending him out of the steam bath into the final afterlife. This is like a
Right.
pit stop, a purgatory-ish thing. And everybody else is just kind of resigned to it. I mean, and some of them don't necessarily believe that the attendant is God. So Bill Bixby's character Tanny, he challenges him for like 45 minutes. That's what the second half of the whole movie is. This one thing after another. You're going to prove your God, and this is why I want you to prove your God. And he keeps talking about his life, and it sounds like a lot of people in the 70s who wanted to be in the arts, who were like social climbers, but they were kind of phonies and they're always like trying to hustle women and hustle people. They're fast talking. He's a writer, but he also works in a police academy where he's an art appreciation teacher. It's that kind of humor. It's like totally incongruous, absurd, the most absurd scenarios you can think of. And he just keeps going. And of course, the God shtick is, it's Jose Perez being like street talk. He's like, what do I have to prove to you, man? And finally he does some like incredible, crazy, weather stuff in there and some disappearing and shape changing of items. And then Bixby kind of believes he's God. So that took a long time. And then so the last little part, because Valerie Perine's character goes ahead and goes to the afterlife, it's just the two of them. You do see the attendant's assistant named Gottlieb over here. He's cleaning up mopping the floor, and Bixby is like, okay, I will not go. And it's prime Bixby because he's like Mr. Melodrama. I can hear David Banner. He's like, I will not go. I will not go. This is the reason why. And he explains
insert the sad Incredible Hulk music.
Yes. And so it's pretty funny and compelling. I mean, it's like a satire, kind of a bitter satire, and kind of like trying to challenge taboos, I guess, on stage, and especially by doing it on TV. So most affiliates did not run it. But I have run into people from time to time who enjoyed it, and my friend Tim McLean saw it recently for the first time, and it was coincidentally, and I don't remember what he thought of it. I think he liked it. I dig it. If you like a play, one set, small amount of characters, but everybody's like on it and witty and funny and crazy. Anything can happen. I highly recommend it.
Well, that's very interesting. I never heard of that.
I hadn't until 2 years
neither
ago,
have I.
3 years ago when I was looking on the rarelust.com where I burnt a lot of DVDs from, and he had, all kinds of obscurities. And I'm like, I think I want to see this.
Cool deal. Okay, well, I have one last one to bring up, so let me swap out my background. There we go.
Wow.
Yes.
You're pretty high tech there, man.
Yeah, I had to
More than me.
I had to cue it up and do a screen cap to catch it with Tarzan still in the screen there, but
it's all good.
All right.
Great logo.
Yeah, and it's great how like in the opening credits he's like swinging across and the letters come out behind him. This is all pre CGI, so they would have had to manually do all that. Pardon me.
That's okay.
All right, so 1966, the year I was born.
Oh wow!
Also, the year Tarzan came to the TV screen with Ron Ely in the role. It doesn't get a lot of replay these days, so I consider it a kind of a forgotten cult classic. Folks who are looking for it gonna have to go probably like I did and have to go pursue some bootlegs. There's a nice bootleg DVD or Blu-ray set out there now based off the old out of print DVD set that was.
Why do you think it sank? Because I mean, is it the people who hold the rights? Because all the old classic Tarzan movies, most of which are just campy fun because they really don't have anything to
Mhm.
do with Tarzan in the books. They're all on DVD and Blu-ray now. I mean, you can get all
Yep.
of them, like all the Gordon
I
Scott and Lex Barker,
yeah.
and even back to Buster Crab. But that one I never hear people talking about anymore.
Nope. I never hear
So I'm
anybody talk
glad you
about it.
are.
It's hard to find information about it when I was digging online. I mean, we've got a basic wiki page, but I can't find much more beyond that. And I'd like to know more. I wish
Yeah.
somebody would do,
I
so,
just have vague
interview
memories.
some people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you, the I think it was considered successful. I mean, it went
Yeah, it
for
was
2
considered a
years,
hit.
but
At
this was
least
in the
that's what I
60s.
read in TV Guide.
I mean, this is the sixth. Yeah, this
I
was the
saw it in
60s, so
reruns
even
a
2
few years
years,
later.
yeah,
Yeah.
57 episodes. But you have 57-hour-long episodes. That's a lot. I mean,
That is a lot.
nowadays, that would be like a 5 or 6 year run,
How many
right? To get
years was it
57
again? 2,
episodes or more. Uh,
3, 2 or
it's
3?
just a 2 year run. Yeah,
Oh
just two
wow. Okay.
seasons. So, but because of the way it was produced, I was able to kind of dig out a little bit. They, 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 it appears when I'm looking at it, and I'm guessing there must be some sort of production rights lined up. Cy Weintraub was the executive producer, and I don't know what the deal was with that. That's too inside baseball. Nobody talks about it, so I don't
Right.
know why it's not out there. Or maybe it has to do with maybe some racial issues or something. Concerns, which I think are unfounded, having gone back and rewatched a lot of these episodes recently, which is why it was on my mind. But I know that like the first like I want to say somewhere in the range, because it's hard to tell for sure because they air episodes out of order like was common in shows back in the 60s, right? They'd film them and they wouldn't necessarily start with the first episode. But like you can tell that like the first maybe 5 or 6 episodes were filmed in a different location than what followed. In other words, they started out filming this show in, I think, Brazil down. And so they had some real extravagant, river shots and waterfalls and things like that that they used, and they obviously did a lot of B-roll shots that got reused exceedingly, which I'll mention also later. But then it shifted to the much cheaper Mexico to film from then on. So most of these episodes are shot, the exteriors are all shot in Mexico. I want to give, first of all, a shout out to Ron Ely for just being maybe the best Tarzan that we had in terms of accuracy and characterization to the books at that time. In 1966, we were just starting to transition out of the me Tarzan, you Jane approach to Tarzan. I think it was someone can correct me, but I think it was Tarzan in the Lost City of Gold that was the a totally literate Tarzan. Like there's a whole I think it's the Lost City of Gold, but that even begins almost like a James Bond film with engaged in all this stuff like in an airport. I mean, it was really, if I remember this right, and this would, I think, predate the series. And so I think the series was picking up off of that interpretation of Tarzan. Cool. So Ron Ely is as Tarzan. First of all, physically fits the part. He's tall. He's perfectly built. He shows no embarrassment at being in that loincloth and running around barefoot, which is what you need. You need a Tarzan who is entirely comfortable and not an actor who's embarrassed that he's running around practically naked on screen all the time. Definitely. And so he has that same air like, say, Christopher Reeve had as Superman, where you believe it when he appears on that screen the first time, because he believes it. He's on there and he carries himself with the confidence of the character as Superman. You see the same sort of quality in Ron Ely's performance of Tarzan in this TV series. You believe that is Tarzan when he walks on the screen.
I did
You
as a kid.
understand, yeah, and you believe it. He walks on the screen, and those adults, they treat him with respect. He's Tarzan, right? And
Hell yeah.
he's smart, he's clever, he's strong, and he spends a lot of these episodes not just swinging through the trees, but problem solving. He's almost like Batman in the jungle.
Detective.
I say all that first to just kind of get to the one aspect of it that may, I'm going to bounce around here, but that may be difficult for modern audiences and watching us, is that we are a little bit more attuned to settings and film tricks and all that kind of stuff than maybe we were in 1966. And so I think we would be inclined in 2024 to look at it and recognize immediately this is not Africa. Okay?
Right.
No matter how much they cut away to shots of hippopotamuses, stock footage of a hippopotamus or a lion or something, just to make us believe that we're in an African environment. It's very clearly not Africa if you know what you're looking for. Doctari was like that, which was a contemporary show, but it was filmed, I think, in California at like an actual like ranch or retreat or something
nature
for
preserve.
a preserve area. So you had all those animals there, so you could actually get some actual shots. Tarzan did not have the benefit of that. They would have to bring in a lion for a sequence or a tiger for a sequence or whatever they were going to use. And credit again to Ron Ely for wrestling with these alligators and lions that they did. When I did do some reading up on, I found out that he experienced more than one dislocated shoulder, some broken bones, a lot of lacerations from even though they might have the lions doped up so they wouldn't actually be able to really harm him.
Would you say he did most of his own stunts?
He did a lot of actual shots of they obviously did have stunt people, but he did a lot of that stuff himself.
Cool.
And I read a thing from one of the directors talking about how impressed he was by the fact that Ron stayed barefoot. He didn't pull one of those things where you put sandals on them or something and just figure, hey, the camera's not showing my feet, I'll just wear shoes until I can. No, he said Ron is running through all of that stuff, and he never showed any grimace or any limitation. He says that was the most impressive thing to him, was watching him just running through
the rugged dude,
all of that with those bare feet, and just like Tarzan would. He was Tarzan,
Yeah.
And so yeah, a lot more credit to him maybe than people give him on going into the physicality of that he was willing to get in there and actually physically get with some of those gators and lions and stuff. Again, like from what I can gather, they would dope them up so they weren't really super dangerous. But I mean, I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't get
I mean, there's still some dangerous claws and some dangerous teeth involved, and he did wind up in the hospital. He did wind up in a hospital to have to deal with some of that stuff, but. So all of that to say, he also had co-stars, some regular co-stars. He had a kid that carried over from that Tarzan movie that I mentioned before, which was the little boy. And the movie, I think he only called him Boy. In the TV series, they give him the name Jai. And he was a little Spanish kid, Manuel Padilla. I don't know if he's Mexican or Spanish, probably Mexican, but I don't know that for sure. I can't find a lot of information on these people. And
he later turned up in American Graffiti playing like a gang member or something to that effect.
There you go. So there's
Cool.
a lot
Good
of
catch.
steady guest stars that were, those of us who grew up with reruns of shows from the 60s and 70s. A lot of people that you'll see that'll pop up, including famously, let's see, Maurice Evans, Julie Harris. I think I saw maybe Michael and Sarah, who you mentioned earlier.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Henry Silva.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Susan Oliver. A lot of mainstays from television guest stars back then. And Tarzan in this, and I think 57 episodes is plenty because it's almost repetitive a lot in the stories,
Yeah.
because it's a lot about maybe Jai gets kidnapped, Jai gets in trouble. There's a lot of episodes about criminals coming in, and they're doing, pulling something, and they're trying to steal this or that. There's none of the real fantasy elements from the books or anything like that. It's just really just Tarzan. There's no mention of Jane. There's no mention of anything. So you've got Tarzan in Africa. Oh, I forgot to mention this. When, I mentioned that they were in Brazil for filming those early episodes. Part of what's awkward about it is they don't, you're assuming it's Africa, but there's not very many black people. The tribal people look like Brazilians. Okay, they look more like
Some Brazilians
Amazonian.
are very dark, but they
Yeah,
definitely
but
aren't
their
exact
hair is
same
very
race.
different.
Yeah,
Their
yeah.
outfits are very different.
Right.
The terrain is very different, and it's very obvious that they're more um, light brown. And I'm just saying the reality. They
Sure.
look more like South Americans than they do African
Sure.
tribal people. Not there's anything wrong with that, but
Well,
there
there is a
is a
benchmark for that. That
well.
one scene in King Kong versus Godzilla where the African tribe are played by Japanese people in
Oh,
blackface. I
Yeah.
have never
yeah,
seen
okay.
that.
That's one thing I will give them credit for. I didn't notice in the episodes that I caught anyone doing
Yeah,
blackface.
probably not by
Okay,
that time.
so I appreciated that in the show from what I saw. But what they did do is when they switched to filming in Mexico, there's a one-line reference to Tarzan being back from Brazil.
Oh gosh.
So I
Oh,
think that
wow.
was their way of maybe covering their butt, that like he had been on an
Hmm.
extended trip to Brazil. So maybe that
Uh,
was like for, because he's always working with the authorities and things like that. Like I said, he's kind of like Batman in a lot of
yeah,
ways,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
jungle. And so and now he's back. And so Mexico becomes Africa. And I'll tell you, from the point where they moved to Mexico, they do have a lot more black people on screen. In fact, Nichelle Nichols was in an episode I watched
Oh
not that
wow,
long
that's
ago.
cool.
No.
And what was one thing I appreciated about it, she had her natural hair, not the Star Trek wig or anything like that.
Right, right.
And that was kind of cool. I liked that visual. She plays like a princess
Of
in this
course.
tribe, and so that's kind of cool. So it's a little time capsule that way, and you do get a bit more in terms of black presence. They sometimes will pad out the tribe, you can see with
Mhm.
Mexicans, but they're keeping the black people up front, which makes me think that after they did that initial filming, that maybe notes from the network or whatever, that maybe they wanted to make it a little more Afrocentric.
Yeah,
We would have been in the beginnings of the Black Power movement and stuff like that. So I can
sure.
see where they might have been a little bit conscious of that. And so
That's good.
that changes. But you do get some of these classic recurring episodic type things. There's even a Nazi episode where there's a Nazi who's looking for lost Nazi treasure there, who and his work encounters Tarzan. There's a few episodes that have mad scientists or something like that he encounters. There was one fun one with Henry Silver that involved like a little submarine in an underground lair and all this kind of stuff. There's a They reused some dramatic footage from one of the movies with a giant clam. And they made
yeah.
sure all the shots of Tarzan with it, where you couldn't see Ron Ely's face, so they could reuse the stunt man. But you're watching that, and it's like, well, is there really going to be a giant clam there in
Did they eat
Africa?
it? No, I'm kidding.
It like catches his leg, and it's like somehow this thing in this right there is going to somehow catch you. It's all you have a suspension of disbelief, right?
Absolutely.
But I kind of like went, well, it's Tarzan. You have lost civilizations, you have all this kind of stuff. There can be a giant clam, right? There were a few things I saw occasionally where they maybe had an animal show up that wasn't native to Africa. Happens occasionally, that kind of thing. Cheetah is in there, the most famous
That's
of
right.
the chimps.
That's where I first saw Cheetah.
Yep. My experience with Ron Ely also, I think I was 5. I think I was 5, might have been 6, but I think I was 5, that Ron Ely and Cheetah came to the mall in Columbus, Georgia.
Wow.
And yeah, we got to go and meet Ron Ely. He had Cheetah with him, and they were doing like autographs and signings, stuff like that. And that would have been after the show was well off the air, but it was big in syndication.
Do you have any authentic memories of 66 to 68, seeing it when you were like an infant?
No, the earliest
You saw it in syndication, or
the earliest I can think back and for sure know I was watching it was I was 4 years old, because it came on at the same time that we would eat dinner. And so I associate sitting at the table with Ron Ely standing on top of that waterfall, doing that thing, which is always kick off the credit. And I'll tell you another fun thing. We got a few minutes. If you do get like the Blu-ray set, the first 6 episodes or so, I think by the 6th they stop. There's this long, elaborate narration at the beginning that tells you all about Tarzan, and it's very poetic and it's very dramatically delivered. And I did do some digging. I'm trying to find who narrated that. I can't find the name so far. One of these days maybe I'll find it. But he's very dramatic, and it's very poetic, and long. It's this long narrative before we ever even get to the beginning of the Tarzan march and then the credits and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, after about those 6 episodes, then they drop the narration, just start with the march and take you through the credits.
That's smart. Yeah.
But
Man.
yeah, but I do love how it flashes back and forth. You've got the shots of maybe Tarzan, you'll hear a roar, and then he like turns and then you cut, and it's the stock footage of a lion somewhere else going ah.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of they make use of their very obviously it was a lower budgeted show. It was an hour-long drama, and it's not played for laughs. It is not campy.
But I think I might laugh at some of those scenes you just described.
You might laugh at it, but you're not going to be laughing with tongue in cheek like
you're not going to laugh
Batman.
at Tarzan, but some of the things about it.
But if there's a feeling that it didn't succeed the way that the networks, I guess it was NBC, wanted it, would say is only because it wasn't campy.
Because Batman was on. Keith froze.
Premiered.
You froze, Keith.
Batman.
Oh, can you repeat that?
Yeah,
you froze a little bit.
It would have premiered around the same time as the Batman TV show.
Yeah,
and if the Batman show became the phenomenon that it did and kind of created the whole concept of camp TV, like
they wanted all the adventure heroes to be campy.
I'm thinking maybe if the network was Tarzan wasn't as successful because everybody was going to the Batman style, and Green Hornet and those types of things that were a little more campy that way. And Tarzan, no, it has it's done. It's not on stages mostly. It's outdoors, and it's on location in Mexico, but not Africa. But it's Mexico stand in for Africa, and so it has a whole different film feel to it. And and it's treated, like I said, seriously. There may be a little funny gag here or there, Cheetah might do something funny or there, that kind of thing, but it's never a show that's being played for laughs. You take it seriously because it takes itself seriously. And
now I'm assuming in hindsight, of course, I may sound like an idiot saying the obvious here, but I'm assuming now it's generally agreed that Batman was played completely for laughs. That's what the vibe I get from it, from fans.
Yeah.
But
well,
I didn't get that when I was a kid because I didn't know better.
Well, I don't.
I did know that he wasn't as serious and depressed all the time like Spider-Man, though. That kind of made me feel weird.
I mean,
like,
I think
Batman. Why is he so happy?
I think you were supposed to be laughing, but I think Batman himself was taking it seriously.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like you're laughing at that whole world. You're not taking it as a legitimate fantasy fiction setting that you're immersed in. It's more like the distance you have from camp things, where you kind of mock like Min Mess T3K has become and all that.
Yeah.
But to me, the camp classic that's based on a comic book is one no one would probably compare to these things. But I think it's just because it's Italian. But Danger Diabolic, to me, that's the greatest camp comic book show of the movie of the 60s. Have you seen it, Keith?
It is on my list that I've actually seen yet.
It's like campy, but it's like European, and it's like got all the crazy music and all the fashion, wild mod fashion, and it's just, of course, it's Mario Bava, so it's just gorgeously shot.
Right. Yeah.
But check it out when you can. It's really cool.
Yeah, I was actually looking at a Blu-ray of it not that long ago when I was doing like a little bulk buy because of a sale.
It's about to go out of print. That's the impression I get from Shout Factory. So I might try to scoop it up. I'm not sure. But yeah, great movie. He froze again. No, maybe that's like the final shot. No.
No. Anyway,
so
that's Tarzan.
Chuck wants to say something.
If you're a fan of Tarzan, you should try to get your hands on it.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Okay. So this was very popular with my family back during its first run, and I kind of have vague memories because we used to watch it all the time. Okay. So with Ron Ely, we are talking like an articulate Tarzan who just speaks in complete sentences.
Oh yeah, educated.
That was my recollection. And because that was my Tarzan. That was what I grew up with. And after a while, several years later, I was seeing some of the old Tarzan movies, and I was like, what is this? Where he's talking in all the broken English and
right.
All that.
Yeah, me
I
too.
was not
Same
used
experience.
to that.
Yeah, Ron Ely was my first, so that's
I feel like one movie from the old days that he's intelligent, he's not eloquent, but is the Herman Bricks, like Tarzan and the Green Goddess, and I think he made one other. I mean, he's he's talking to the natives in complete sentences. He's walking, he doesn't act, as intelligent and purposeful as Tarzan does. But
Chuck, I would say check out Mike Henry's Tarzan and the Lost City of Gold, which was right before this, because you'll get an idea what I think I think that was the one that set up this series. Basically, like, it was successful enough, they were like, let's do Tarzan as a series.
Let me ask you a question, Keith.
Who played him in that one?
Mike Henry, former football player.
Played him. Oh, right. Okay.
And he shows up on the Tarzan series playing a bad guy at a certain point. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Didn't like Fritz Lieber or somebody like that write that script?
Fritz Lieber wrote it, and Fritz Lieber wrote that book, and it's a great read. And fairly recently, I know ERB recognized it as canon now.
Yeah, I remember
that. It's part of the official canon, but for a long time it was debated.
It's weird to know people who can make those decisions.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But it's now official. That and Dark Heart of Time, I think, are the only two non-Burroughs books that were official original canon like that.
Okay, that's pretty wild. I could go off on a lot of tangents, but yeah, that's incredible, Keith. So I guess we're gonna wrap up the episode. You guys can stick around for a minute because we have
Okay.
A couple of things to chat about, but talking to you people watching, thank you, and remember to like and subscribe. I'm Henry Covert. This is Deep Images. This is CF Roberts, Keith Howell, and we're wrapping up our Cult TV series for now. There will probably another session, I have no doubt. So thanks for watching, and remember, I'm going to be doing a piece with a young lady named Kirsty McQueen on a Serbian film in a couple of days. That won't be posted for a couple of weeks. And then we're also doing an interview with Filipino horror actress Yvette is on. So exciting things. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate you, and have a lovely
Thanks.
evening.
Bye.